Chapter 4. Duty. A fee paid for transacting in goods. U.S. Department of Commerce.
But, Your Majesty, he promised me pay the other half before spring, and...
I did not.
Did too.
Liar.
Thief.
Citizens, I said. I can only listen to one side at a time. Now then, you, tell me what you remember being said. That's right. I said. There I was, sitting on the very throne I had decided to avoid at all cost. Actually, this king business wasn't all that rough. Roderick had briefed me on basic procedure and provided me with a wardrobe, and from there it was fairly simple. The problems paraded before me weren't all that hard to solve, but there were lots of them. At first I was scared, then for a while it was fun. Now it was just boring. I'd lost count of how many cases I had listened to, but I had developed a new sympathy for Roderick's desire to get away for a while. I was ready for a vacation before lunch rolled around. It was beyond my comprehension how he lasted for years of this nonsense. You may wonder how I went from talking with Massha to sitting on the throne. Well, I wonder myself from time to time, but here's what happened as near as I can reconstruct it. Needless to say, her request to work as my apprentice caught me unprepared. But, Massha, you already have a job as a court magician. Why would you want to apprentice yourself to me? In response, Massha heaved a great sigh. It was a startling phenomenon to watch. Not because there was so much of Massha moving in so many different directions, but because when she was done, she seemed to have deflated to nearly half her original size. She was no longer an imposing figure, just a rather tired-looking fat woman. Love you too, buddy. Look, Skeeve, she said in a low voice that bore no resemblance to her normal, vampish tones. If we're going to work together, we've got to be honest with each other. Court magician or not, we both know that I don't know any magic. I'm a mechanic, a gimmick freak. I've got enough magic baubles to hold down a job, but any bozo with a big enough bankroll could buy the same stuff at the bazaar at Diva. Now, mind you, I'm not complaining. Old Massha's been kicked around by some of the best and nobody's ever heard her complain. I've been happy with what I have up until now. It's just that when I saw you and your rat pack put one over on both city-states at the big game with some real magic, I knew there was something to learn besides how to operate gimmicks. So, what do you say? Will you help me learn a little of the stuff I really got into this magic biz for? Her honesty was making me more than a little uncomfortable. I wanted to help her, but I sure didn't want an apprentice right now. I decided to stall. Why did you choose magic for a profession, anyway? That got me a sad smile. You're sweet, Skeeve, but remember we were going to be honest with each other. I mean, look at me. What am I supposed to do for a living? Get married and be a housewife? Who would have me? Even a blind man could figure out in no time that I was more than he had bargained for. A lot more. I resigned myself to the way I look a long time ago. I accepted it and covered up any embarrassment I felt with loud talk and flamboyant airs. It was only natural that a profession like magic that thrives on loud talk and flamboyant airs would attract me. We aren't all loud talk, I said cautiously. I know, she smiled. You don't have to act big because you've got the clout to deliver what you promised. It impressed me on Jacques, and everyone I talked to at the bazaar and Diva said the same thing. Skeeve doesn't strut much, but don't start a fight with him. That's why I want you for my teacher. I already know how to talk loud. Honesty and flattery are a devastating 1-2 punch. Whatever I thought about her before, right now Massha had me eating out of the palm of her hand. Before I committed myself to anything I might regret later, I decided to try fighting her with her own weapons. Massha, we're going to be honest with each other, right? Well, I can't accept you as an apprentice right now for two reasons. The first is simple. I don't know that much magic myself. No matter what kind of scam we pull on the paying customers, including the ones on Diva, the truth is that I'm just a student. I'm still learning the business myself. Well, that's no problem, Big Buona. Massha laughed, regaining some of her customary composure. Magic is like that. The more you learn, the more you find out there is to know. That's why the really big guns in our business spend all their time closeted away, studying and practicing. You know some magic, and that's more than I know. I'll be grateful for anything you're willing to teach me. Oh, I said, a bit surprised that my big confession hadn't fazed her at all. Well, there's still the second reason. And that is? That I'm in a bit of trouble myself. In fact, I was just getting ready to sneak out of the kingdom when you showed up. A small frown wrinkled Masha's forehead. She said thoughtfully. Maybe you'd better give me some details of this trouble you're in. Sometimes talking it out helps, and that's what apprentices are for. They are? I countered skeptically. I've been apprenticed twice, and I don't remember either of the magicians I studied under confiding in me with their problems. Well, that's what Masha's for. Listening happens to be one of the few things I'm really good at. Now give. What happened to put a high-stepper like you on the run? Seeing no easy alternative, I told her about the king's assignment and my subsequent deal with Grimble. She was right. She was an excellent listener, making just enough sympathetic noise to keep me talking without actually interrupting my train of thought. When I finally wound down, she sighed and shook her head. You're right. You've got a real problem there. But I think there are a few things you've overlooked in reaching your final decision. Such as? Well, first, you're right. A bad king is worse than a good king. The problem is that a bad king is better than no king at all. Roddy Five is counting on you to fill his chair tomorrow, and if you don't show up, the whole kingdom goes into a panic because the king has disappeared. I hadn't thought about it that way, I admitted. Then there's the whole thing with Grimble. We all pick up a little extra cash when we can, but in this case, if it comes out that Grimble paid you to skip out when the king was counting on you, his head goes on the chopping block for treason. I closed my eyes. That did it. It was bad enough to hurt the faceless masses, but when the mass had a face, even if it was Grimble's, I couldn't let him face a treason charge because of my cowardice. You're right, I sighed. I'm going to have to sit in for the king tomorrow. With me as your apprentice? Ask me after tomorrow, if I'm still alive. In the meantime, scurry off and say hello to Bad Axe. I know he'll be glad to see you. Your Majesty. I snapped back to the present and realized 2 arguers were now looking at me, presumably to render a decision. If I understand this case correctly, I stalled, both of you are claiming ownership of the same cat, correct? The 2 heads bobbed in quick agreement. Well, if the 2 of you can't decide the problem between you, it seems to me there is only one solution. Cut the cat in 2, and each of you can keep half. This was supposed to inspire them to settle their difference with a quick compromise. Instead, they thanked me for my wisdom, shook hands, and left smiling, presumably to carve up their cat. It occurred to me, not for the first time today, that many of the citizens of Posiltum didn't have both oars in the water. What anyone could do with half a dead cat, or a whole dead cat for that matter, was beyond me. Suddenly, I was very tired. With an offhand wave, I beckoned the herald forward. How many more are waiting out there? I asked. That was the last. We deliberately kept the caseload light today, so your Majesty could prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow? The question slipped out reflexively. Actually, I didn't really care what happened tomorrow. My assignment was done. I had survived the day, and tomorrow was Roderick's problem. Yes, tomorrow, when your bride arrives. Suddenly, I was no longer tired. Not a bit. I was wide awake and listening with every pore. My bride? I asked cautiously. Surely your Majesty hasn't forgotten. She specifically scheduled her arrival so that she would have a week to prepare for your wedding. Caseload be hanged. Now I knew why dear Roderick wanted a vacation. I also knew, with cold certainty, that he wouldn't be back tonight to relieve me of my duties. Not tonight, and maybe not ever.